right, and we are good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Rebel Radio podcast. My name is Ashton Holloway, and today we have a very special guest with us. We have the master of the Tornado DDT, the former AEW superstar. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Fuego Del Sol. Fuego, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, thank you for being here. And, I've followed your career for years and years, brother. I've been here since the KBW days. And I just want to say congratulations on all your success. And I'm so glad to see how far you've come. But let's kind of start from the beginning to kind of give everybody an idea of where you started. So, where did your love for wrestling come from exactly?
My father, man, since the day I was born, we've been watching wrestling every night. So my dad's a huge wrestling fan, even to this day. He's a huge wrestling fan. He watches all the time. He keeps up with what I'm doing constantly. He's always on the phone talking to me about wrestling. Earlier today, he called me. We're filming this on a Monday. He was like, "What do you think what's going to happen on Raw tonight?" And so we talked a little bit about that. So it's just from day one. I think it was a way to connect with my dad, and so as long as I can remember, I've been watching pro wrestling.
That's awesome, brother. And, I can definitely see a lot of influences from different wrestlers from, even nowadays to back then. But who would you say are some of your inspirations growing up when you were first watching?
When I literally first started watching wrestling, it was when Stone Cold was at his peak. So originally it was Steve Austin for sure, but Steve left and retired around 03. I was about 8 or 9 at that time, and Shawn Michaels had just came back into the WWE for his second run, and I kind of fell in love with Shawn Michaels. And then around that same era, around 05, we started watching TNA on a regular basis, and AJ Styles just captured all my attention. And as well as other guys along the way, like the Hardy Boys and Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. Is like, how do you not love those guys? And then as I got a little older, it became the CM Punks and the Bryan Danielsons of the world that I, come to know and love as well. And so right around 2014 is when I actually got started wrestling, but you can definitely tell that I loved pro wrestlers that maybe didn't have the monster size, but could still be main eventers, even though, because I saw a lot of myself in them. So guys that were maybe smaller in stature didn't look like it, but you never would think that they're wrestling a small style. They always fit into the main event scene.
Of course, man. And even for me, I really love like the Ruthless Aggression era. I feel like that era is probably the best wrestling that WWE's ever produced. And I mean, even now where the business is and how it's kind of transitioned, it's really amazing to see, right? And I started watching in 2011 when CM Punk was on the rise. So he was definitely my favorite growing up. Edge was definitely a big influence as well, but when I first started watching, he had just retired. So I kind of got like the bare end of it. And then, of course, TNA started popping off on Spike TV. So AJ Styles was definitely a big influence. And, like KBW was definitely something that definitely motivated me when I was younger, doing the backyard stuff and, getting my own kind of thing going. But in 2014, when you did start, like, what would you say the transition was like for you, wrestling in the backyard to becoming a professional wrestler?
It was the immediate start of living my dream, man. I just loved it so much. I remember taking my first bump in the ring compared to on the trampoline, but you could tell that my passion was already there. I already was very confident in myself, and I was a very fast learner, and I wanted it so bad. And so I kind of got used to the bumping and the fundamentals of the little things you need to do as a pro wrestler compared to the things you're just unaware of when you're doing backyard wrestling. And I kind of transitioned fast, and I can still vividly remember May 24th, 2014, standing right behind the curtain, about to go out for my first match, and kind of just having those butterflies in my stomach, and like even saying to myself, this is it. You did it. You're about to be a pro wrestler. And then hitting the curtain for the first time. It's still, even when I'm frustrated or mad or angry or tired or on the road, I try to think back to that moment, and it brings me a little bit of joy.
That's awesome, bro. And right now, I just started training at the Hybrid School of Wrestling in San Antonio, and even before that, I was with Extreme Showdown Wrestling, and I know they used to be really big back in the early
Yes, dub.
2000s. Dude, yeah. So I mean, I got it near whenever they first got their wrestling ring, and me and Austin G became best friends. So, I got to learn a lot about storytelling and working in the ring and actually learning more about storylines and, telling a story through wrestling than just, actually doing the moves. And I feel like that was something that definitely made them different compared to like other backyard organizations out there. And even KBW with the style of the way that you guys were working and just the influences of how you guys did everything. It just seemed very raw and authentic with the way that you kind of ran everything on the channel. But, kind of moving back to when you first started as a pro, I know obviously you are a smaller guy that works in the ring, but when you first joined the business, what are some things that you struggled with when you first joined and how did you have to overcome it?
I look back at my time in KBW and I look at Cage as the most confident, maybe overconfident, arrogant in even some ways wrestlers I've ever seen. There was just a self-belief of knowing that I'm the best that I feel like I had at that time. And then, but I try to be a very humble kid and tries to absorb as much knowledge as possible. And so when I got into the wrestling business, I think I was almost too humble. I was almost too open. I feel like when you're getting into the business, you're unaware of the guys that are doing this the right way compared to the guys that just have fun on the weekends doing this. And
Hmm.
so maybe not, maybe being, I won't say being too nice because I don't ever think you can be too nice, but being too simple minded, being too, and just too giving in a sense of like, even though I proved to myself that I had good storyline ideas and good ideas in general, I would always take a back step to anybody that had more experience than me and let them call it or let them do their thing and kind of guide everything because I didn't want to come across as a arrogant greenhorn that didn't know what he was doing, even though sometimes I think the quality of my work was better than guys that have been doing it a long time. I would always take a step back, and maybe I was too much of a people pleaser in a lot of ways. And I think trying to learn that sometimes quality means more than quantity. Sometimes that you got to realize that guys are full of themselves or guys they're only out for themselves.
Hmm.
Trying to navigate those difficult waters when you're fresh in is much harder than most people may even realize. And so I had to try to get my footing under me, but I kind of kept that people pleasing attitude even up until the late stages of my career. And I look back at young Cage and I think, man, I got to take a little bit of that arrogance and that confidence back myself.
That's awesome, man. And I'm glad to hear that you've been able to transition and become this bigger star now, And I think even with what you were just saying, like yesterday we just had a seminar with Jamie Noble, the producer from WWE, and he was kind of giving us advice on working in the business. And, he was kind of talking about the same thing about, either the heel or the more tenured veteran is going to be the one calling the matches. But it's also that aspect of having to stand up for yourself and kind of know your place. And obviously, you have to be able to know your place on the card and not, step over any boundaries. But if you're not content with where you are, you have to be able to stand up for yourself, or else you're going to end up getting stuck in that bubble. And I think that's something that a lot of talent out here in Texas kind of struggle with is being content and being able to stick within this same kind of like territory, right? They don't really bet on themselves the way that some of the higher workers nowadays kind of do. And even getting to see you and Epi at RCW back a couple months ago, that match was so amazing. Just the way that you guys worked. I don't know if that was y'all's first time working together, but the
First time ever.
chemistry, wow. And he's young. He just had a match yesterday in front of Jamie, and he stole the show. He is amazing. He's such a great talent. But I am kind of curious. I mean, in your opinion, how has the business evolved from when you first started to now?
Well, you mentioned that, and Jamie is right. Most of the time, the veteran or the heel would call the match, but it's become a much more collaborative effort now, I feel like. Guys are around the same tenure, or, we've both made it to the same spot for a reason. And so there's a much more collaboration. And I feel like at this point, being 11 years deep, I know how to structure a good match. And that doesn't mean it's going to be great. That doesn't mean it's going to be 5 stars, but it's definitely going to be good. And I feel like sometimes, being the people pleaser that I am, I take a step back, and I step down and let this person change something up that maybe necessarily I wouldn't do, or I wouldn't call, and it sometimes doesn't go right or doesn't go well. And I have to remind myself that, hey, I've been doing this a long time and I'm confident in my work, and you have to just stand your ground in ways to make sure you have the match that you and you're able to tell the story that you want to tell. And so that's been a newer thing. And once you have some TV experience and you have a fancy logo someone can slap next to your name on a poster, it kind of gives you um that tenure and that confidence to say, hey guys, I've been doing this at a pretty high level, that I can kind of guide the ship here in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And I think, that's perfect, especially with where I kind of wanted to go with this as well. Like, I know your time in AEW, you spent quite a while there. And, you know, I mean, as far as the way that they booked you, I feel like there was things that probably could have been different, but you also did quite a bit on the show. And it feels like maybe there was a little bit more that could have been done with your character and maybe to present your style a little bit more, right? Because even when I saw you at RCW, like I already knew you were talented. I knew you since the backyard days and I knew what potential you had. But with the way that AEW presented you on screen, it felt like maybe there was a little more to Fuego del Sol. So I am a little curious as well. Like, what was your experience working with AEW like?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say I would have to thank AEW. They helped put me on the map. They gave me the exposure at a grander scale. Millions of people now know the name of Fuego del Sol because of AEW. However, it's a weird spot to be in because I feel like millions of people know of me, but they don't really know how capable I am in the ring, how good I feel like
Mhm.
that I am in the ring. I feel like when given proper time, and a slither of importance, you can get the opportunities to show exactly how good you might be. And I feel like I never had a 10-minute match, over a 10-minute match in AEW. It was all 10 minutes or less on TV. And I feel like there was so much more that I wanted to show. Unfortunately, the booking and the totem pole falls and swings a different way at times, and you have to take what you're given. Luckily, I was paid a good amount of money. And so you have to take what you can get when you get it. But yeah, I definitely think there's way more to be shown and to show the facets of my game, whether it be in AEW or anywhere else. I am like itching to show all these people that know of me but don't truly know how good I am, just how good I can be and the potential I do have in the future.
Absolutely. And even with some of the work that you're doing right now in GCW, I feel like now people are just now starting to understand how talented you really are. And I feel like at some point you'll probably end up making your way back to AEW to do more work. But I mean, how do I say this? Like, what do you think resulted to them booking you the way they did?
Well, I think a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, Tony Khan is the end all be all. And I think I
Mhm.
had a lot of people around me pushing for me, but I don't think he ever truly knew what he would want it to do with me. Uh, you know, he had his totem pole worth of guys, and I just think that I wasn't on the top of the totem pole. Then that's not necessarily saying that I should have been. I'm just saying that's how the dominoes fell in that sense. And so I tried to pitch ideas. I put up a whole YouTube video giving out like 5 or 6 different pitches I did pitch at the time. But, for whatever reason, Tony didn't want to go with any of them, or things happened that stopped it at the end of the day. So you have to have top guys willing and wanting to work with you. And I feel like, especially after Cody left, it was much harder for me to get those opportunities to work with top guys. Malachi Black went and fought for me and got me a 3-match feud with him that I wasn't supposed to really get. I feel like so many people went to bat for me that Tony clearly said I saw that I was talented and that I deserved a job, but he didn't necessarily know what he would want to do with me or where I would fit in his ideas. Uh, And I feel like I barely scratched the surface there. So I feel like I'm gonna break out on a major level, whether it be there or somewhere else. Eventually, I just got to keep grinding and keep doing my thing because I feel like there's so much more to Fuego del Sol that I need to show to the world.
Absolutely. And I feel like as time has gone on, things have really changed within the business, especially for AEW. And you're right, Cody leaving was definitely a big hit on the company. And you can kind of see that with the way that the product kind of has been recently. Not to say that it's, degraded or anything, because there's still so much great talent there on the roster, but there definitely has been a shift with the way that the business has transitioned. But kind of moving forward, I mean, I know obviously you want to do more with your career. You're obviously hungry and striving for more, but what do you think it's going to take to be successful in the business for yourself? Or what would you say, what does it take for somebody to be successful in the business at this point?
There has to be a combination of fan support and booker support, and to capitalize at that time, right? I feel like everybody is good at one of the three things you need to be like a world champion. You could be just pure in-ring work. You could be so undeniably good in ring that people need you. Like think about like a Claudio Cesaro. He's just so good in ring that nobody can stop him. Promo work. You've been just so good at promos. You find a way into top angles and top stories, right? Paul Heyman has a way of making everything feel major, right? And so anybody he's associated with immediately gets 30% better because he's making sure that they're 30% better. And the last thing is look/gimmick. What I mean by that is Bobby Lashley has a look, Bray Wyatt is a gimmick, right? Sometimes your overall presentation or your overall look can get you to the top level, even if necessarily the promo work and the in-ring work is not there. And I feel like everybody has one of those things that they're great at and maybe that they're not great at in the other avenues. If you have two of these, if you have one of these, you might get one chance at a run at a world championship. If you have two of these, you can get multiple runs at a world championship. And if you have all three, you're Steve Austin, you're Hulk Hogan, you're John Cena, you're Roman Reigns, you're The Rock. You're that great. And I feel like for me, I have barely scratched the surface of showing guys how good I am on the microphone. I have worked hard on working on my look and putting on the weight that I feel like is necessary to stand out and to not look puny in a lot of ways. You got to have a TV body if you want to be on TV. So I've worked hard at that. And I feel like my wrestling ability is up to par. I feel like I'm as good as anybody can be. And the more opportunities I get to show that, the more I feel like that will be proven. It's the promo work that I feel like people don't even know how good. Like even going back to my backyard days, I'm not saying I was a great talker in the backyard, but for my age at the time, I thought I was 10 times more competent and confident than even some grown adults are right now. And I feel that sometimes you're waiting for the right story or the right angle, and it's much harder to try to just talk into the abyss as a babyface than it is to talk into the abyss as a heel. And so I think there's going to have to be some type of major shift in my character to really showcase how good I can be on the mic and how much talent I have. I feel like, I've been a babyface for 11 years almost. And it's like it's like if everyone knows you're a good actor, but you've also been able to sing for 11 years and you've never got to show your voice off. And then the second you start singing, everyone's going to be like, oh my God, you should have been singing all this time. What are we doing here? It's like I haven't even got to show my varying degrees of abilities that I have in my repertoire. I've only been painting or acting one way for all this time. So I feel like there's definitely in 2025 needs to be a major shift for me to shake things up and for me to get back in front of the mass audience and show them how good I can be.
Absolutely. That was a great answer, by the way. I feel like there's so much information there for younger talent to kind of take. And dude, like you're so right. At least from what I've seen, it feels like everybody overlooks your promos and your character because you're so good in the ring. And
And
I
it's
feel like
also due to booking, I feel like as well, man. If you're booked like a loser in a sense, people start associating you as a loser. I put out a tweet a couple weeks ago that said, "Never confuse someone's talent, or never confused how someone is booked for how actually talented they are." And I feel like a lot of people do that. If they're if they're conditioned to not to care about you because the booker doesn't care about you, that's how the mass majority will feel. Sorry to cut you off.
No, yeah, you're good, brother. Absolutely. So, that actually strikes up a new question I didn't actually have already. So, what's more important to you? Are you more driven by your direction and the way that people see you? Are you more driven by the money? Like, what is your drive? What is your passion right now for this?
I guess it depends on what bills are due at the end of the month in a lot of ways, right? Because when things are going well financially, you have the luxury of focusing on stories and angles and what you want to do in that sense. However, when the bills are due, you're only focusing about the paycheck. So if I'm not doing great and AEW wants to book me and use me as a loser and I get that paycheck every month, it's kind of hard to beat. But when you're doing well and you're proving yourself, it just depends on, I guess how hungry you are at times. But right now I am fueled by showing the wrestling world how good I am. I'm just so passionate about this, and I know the potential I have and what I'm capable of. And I feel like so many people just look at me as the comedy sidekick loser that I
Mhm.
was in AEW, and they don't know what I'm not only capable of, but what I am gonna bring to the wrestling world in the very near future.
You are so close to getting exactly where you need to be. And I feel like the reps of you being on the road for years and years and years is now finally to pay off. And, like even for me, I feel like I'm starting from the bottom again, going to this wrestling school. Like at ESW, I made it all the way to the top. I was working with Austin G and he was the top talent there. We did this story where I was the underdog babyface and he burned a picture of my dead mother before our big blow off match that we had. And that was kind of my crowning moment. And I feel like I got to do everything that I wanted to do there, right? And the views and the numbers were all there from the online fan base. I had all the progress I needed from working in front of live audiences that it was time for me to transition and, learn how to do this professionally. But it is such a ego driven business. And I feel like even at the school right now, I'm having such a difficult time kind of getting my way around. And obviously I'm still a rookie, right? I've only been around for about 3 or 4 months. So people still kind of see me as this young cat, but they don't understand that I can cut a hell of a promo. I know what I'm doing with my gimmick. I know how to market. I know how to sell. I've been doing this for years, but it's going to take that time and just kind of building the rep and, obviously paying your dues, right? Because that's how this business works. But what advice could you give to someone who is just starting out in the business that may be struggling right now?
Don't stress over things you can't control. I've spent many a nights being mad at booking or not being booked on this, or not getting a championship match here. And you can't stress about things you can't control. What you can worry about is how hard you work. And I just am a firm believer that the cream will always rise to the top. Right? There's so many people that will disregard you or doubt you or think nothing of you until you have a few successes, and then everyone's like, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you. I knew you could do it. I'm so happy for you."
Yeah.
And it's not always that way. It takes you to build that resume of success as a undeniable proof of evidence that you are good at what you do. And sometimes some people will not take you serious until someone else takes you serious, right? You get the stamp of approval from someone else, and then everybody's like, well, wait a minute, yeah, this guy is good. It
Hmm.
almost takes, something like that to happen for you to get. So I just tell people to just keep working hard, focus on the things you can control, and grind nonstop, right? They say hard work beats talent when talent won't work. And so you just have to work extremely hard. And when you have those moments to showcase that talent, hit a home run, knock it out of the park, show them all what you already knew.
I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate you sharing that. And that really resonates with what I'm going through right now. So I just really appreciate you taking the time to even sit down and have this conversation with me. But, as we wrap up, I am curious. We've talked about this determination that you have to try to get yourself to the top. But where do you see yourself at the end of 2025? Where do you want to be?
That's a hard question. Where I want to be is I want to be signed somewhere. That's the clear goal. And if I'm not signed somewhere, if for some reason companies aren't smart enough to see the value in me, I want to be GCW World Champion by the end of the year. That's number one and number two goal right there. Maybe both, if I can make both of those happen in the right spot. Um, and then I want to get to Japan. That's a smaller side goal. It's a little bit harder to navigate and do because I could easily probably pay my way over there and get on shows, but I want to be brought over there the right way. But yeah, I have to be signed by the end of the year, and I will do everything and anything to make that happen and make that possible. And so that's the number one goal. And not even by the end of 2025. I have a lot of goals I need to have done by WrestleMania weekend. And if it's not done by WrestleMania weekend, then there needs to be a serious change, not only in my career, but in my life. I have 3 kids that I have to worry about and put food on the table for. And I feel like this past 2.5 years since leaving AEW, or really maybe like almost 2 years, I think I have put in all the work to make sure my in-ring work is phenomenal. I put in all the work to make sure I have the TV body. And now I just need the right opportunity to show everybody how damn great I'm going to be.
I think you're gonna do it, and I think even by WrestleMania weekend, you're gonna get to where you need to be. And I hope everything works out for you moving forward. I know the struggles and how it is to be on the road, and it's a sacrifice at some point. Whenever you're missing time with your family to go and do this because you love the business so much, and I can see it in the way that you talk about the business. You obviously love this more than anything in your life, you know. And I would imagine that there is a lot of struggle that comes with that. But I'm really hoping the best for you. And I'm a firm believer in the law of attraction, brother. So if you put that out in the universe that you want to be a top talent, you want to be signed, it's bound to happen. And, you know, as we do wrap up, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you. I appreciate that, the kind words.
Of course. Yeah, man. Of course, brother. And I'll be in town for WrestleMania weekend. So let me know if you're around or what shows you got going on. I'd love to meet up with you and Myron and hopefully see some of the guys that, you know, we've obviously known for a couple years now. And the last question, I do this with every guest, and I kind of stole it from Chris Van Fleet, but I'm going to do it with you. So just
what I'm grateful for.
Yep, you got me, brother. Go ahead.
I would say people that I love and that love me. I don't want to just narrow it down to family or friends. I kind of put them together. I group them together. Great people who I love to be around and who love to be around me. That's one thing I'm grateful for.
Okay.
Second thing I'm grateful for is pro wrestling. I pray that someone has an interest that can help them escape and that can consume their thoughts and minds in an exciting way, and that they can watch or talk about with their friends and enjoy in a way that I have enjoyed being a part and watching pro wrestling for the last 29 years of my life. So pro wrestling is number 2. And then finally, for my health, right? They say a healthy man wants 1,000 things, whereas an unhealthy man just wants one thing. And after breaking my foot in 2023 and being on the shelf for 4 months, I absolutely resonate with that sentiment so much. You really just want to be healthy when you're unhealthy. And I'm so thankful for my health and that I am in good health. And I hope other people don't take their health for granted. So friends and family is one, pro wrestling is one, and my health is the third.
That's awesome, brother. Well, Fuego, thank you so much for your time today. I hope everything works out for you moving forward. I'll be keeping in touch and just keeping up on your career, man. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Rebel Radio podcast. My name is Ashton Holloway, and we will see you guys next time.